Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
There's that issue about drinking milk straight from the carton if other people are going to be using that carton of milk later. And so you'd think that would never make the headlines, right, of the news. Well, a lot of people sent me the story, including Spencer and Caitlin out of Windsor. Drinking someone else's milk straight from the jug costs BC real estate agent $20,000. Now, it's $20,000 Canadian. It happens in British Columbia, and I just mentioned that Spencer and Caitlin are in Windsor. I'm not implying that Windsor is near BC. I'm simply pointing out they're in Windsor, because Windsor is near Detroit, and they're then neighbors of mine. So this man was recorded on home surveillance footage sipping the milk and putting it back. You might go, but wait a second. What's the problem? Well, in the headline, it says someone else's milk. Someone else's milk. So the man is a real estate agent in British Columbia, and he's been fined $20,000 after being caught on camera drinking milk straight out of the jug at a home he was showing. It was not his home. He was simply in the home waiting for his clients to show up who were considering buying the house. So he's a realtor, a real estate agent. I understand realtor is a trademark phrase. A consent order released by the BC Financial Services Authority last week said that the man was alone in the home in Kamloops, BC in July of last year as he waited for his clients who were interested in buying the property. He went to the refrigerator, he says, to find water, according to the consent order, but instead swigged some milk straight from the container, which he then put back in the refrigerator. The consent order, agreed by both the superintendent of real estate and the realtor, said the owners of the home saw him drinking the milk when they reviewed footage from a surveillance camera, then confronted him about it 2 days later. He apologized for his actions, was told he wasn't welcome in the home, and his clients replaced him in their purchase of the property. He claims in the order that his behavior was out of character, and he was unusually dehydrated at the time because of a new medication, as well as being under considerable stress. And of course, if you're under considerable stress and unusually dehydrated, you couldn't possibly drink out of the faucet. I mean, that would be crazy thoughts, right? Don't even go there. So the consent order states that the man opened the fridge looking for water, but when he couldn't find any, he instead drank the milk. The homeowner said she is still upset by the behavior and is glad the regulatory body did something about the incident. It's just a little bit more than a slap on the wrist, which is good. It's definitely a fine that's going to put a little dent in him. $20,000. Yeah, that's a dent. So the homeowner posted the surveillance footage to Facebook after this happened back in July of last year. At the time, she said she notified another real estate agent at that man's brokerage who notified management about it. So she said when you have professionals in your home, you feel like you can trust them. And I learned quite a lesson in this. Shortly after the incident in July, the man wrote in a statement to CBC News that his actions were unfortunate and uncharacteristic. And so who'd have thought you're in a home by yourself? It's not your home, but you're in the home by yourself. You think no one's watching. Go to the fridge, swig the milk, put the milk back. Not only did somebody find out about it, but they captured it on film, posted it on social media, and now you find yourself having to write a statement to the CBC. And that's before you got hit with a $20,000 fine. He also said in a statement he'd spend time considering his behavior and take action to prevent any similar missteps in the future. I've never done this kind of thing before, nor will I ever behave in this way again, said the statement. Now, he is still working as a real estate agent, just at a different brokerage, and he agreed to pay the disciplinary penalty of $20,000 to the authority for conduct unbecoming and $2,500 in enforcement expenses. So a grand total of $22,500. Again, that's in Canadian dollars. But the whole point of this is that it makes you wonder how much of this stuff happens that people never know about. And if this is really the first time he's done it, or if it's really just the first time he got caught. And it's just creepy and gross. Some people are going to ask about the surveillance camera inside the home catching him do this. Number one, it happened in Canada, so all bets are off. I'm not even going to speculate on what the laws might be in Canada. But for you to have a surveillance camera inside your own home, remember that most of the eavesdropping statutes talk about capturing conversations. And so if it's simply motion picture, film, you can watch what happened. You might not have any problems simply because it's not recording audio. Now, if it's recording audio, there might be an argument there, but the question simply becomes, two wrongs don't make a right. It's just that you got this on camera, that might cause that person problems, and they're going to claim, well, you shouldn't have caught me on camera, and that might be something else. But of course, like I said, depends what state you're in, and there are 50 states, and of course, D.C., and this didn't happen in any one of those 51. It happened in Canada. So I've heard lots of stories about people doing stupid stuff. I mentioned before that I wrote the book about Timothy Masters. With Timothy Masters, he and I wrote the book together called Drawn to Injustice. And I got a copy down here, but it's wrapped in plastic. It wouldn't photograph very well. But, he was convicted of a murder that he did not commit. And he spent 10 years in prison because of that. And so in this story, all kinds of unusual things happened. And among other things that were interesting was that there were other murders that took place after the murder for which Timothy Masters was convicted, which makes you wonder if there was a serial killer out there and the woman that Tim was accused of murdering may have been the victim of a serial killer. And one of the people who they found, one of the victims they found, was in a home that was for sale. And so a real estate agent brought some prospective buyers to a home, and they were walking through the rooms, and they encountered a murder victim in one of the rooms. So talk about crazy things happening while you're home shopping. I mean, it's just bizarre. And of course, they don't think that the murder victim had any connection to that house. They just think that somehow the murderer dumped the body there or something. Who knows? Who knows? But another question that pops up, because I wrote a book called American Murder Houses, is if a house is the site of a murder, does that affect your ability to sell it? I actually wrote a whole chapter on that. And believe it or not, it does. And so think about this. You're trying to sell a house, and all of a sudden it becomes a crime scene through no fault of your own. And so then the police are tramping in and out of it for at least a day, maybe a couple days, and they got your house wrapped up in yellow tape, and you got a for sale sign on the front yard. That's not good for business. It's not. So you think about that and go, what are the odds? It's just. So it's obviously a tragedy that somebody got murdered, and it's just one of those really, really weird aspects to that whole story about what's happening in that town around the time of that murder and following those murders. So again, I'm just simply getting at the oddities of things happening with homes that are for sale. And so I've known people who've listed homes for sale. I've bought homes. I've sold homes. And every now and then, you always wonder when people are walking through your house while you're not there, is everything going to be on the up and up, or do I have to walk through later and look around and see how things are how things are now? So, it's a crazy story. Spencer and Caitlin, thanks for sending it from Windsor. Of course, the story happened in BC. And the CBC is the agency that ran the story. Drinking someone else's milk straight from the jug cost BC real estate agent $20,000 Canadian. And the real question I have is, if he'd poured it into a glass and then drank it, would he have been fined? And if so, I'm assuming it'd be less than $20,000. And would that take away the bulk of the gross factor here? Or would that still be, but it's still inappropriate. And of course, it's still inappropriate. It's just not as inappropriate, I don't think. But hey, I'm an attorney. I'm always looking for ways out. Questions or comments, put them below. Those. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Why isn't there mouse-flavored cat food?